Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, Betsy. I'm so excited to be back in training with you for our Power Agents. Today, we're going to go over PowerPoint 101, which is using PowerPoint to use all the tools that you have in your Power Agent program, but also just as a business tool. It's a fantastic program, are all of Microsoft products. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, what you do, how you get started, even where you can get the program, what other platforms you can use to open these programs. So we're going to have a full time here on this webinar. And Betsy, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We're always excited to see you. I'm going to kind of let you take this away, and then we will we'll chat and I'll ask questions where needed and show us what to do.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Julie. And hi, everyone. Hi again. Welcome to PowerPoint. We're gonna start by just going over the objectives that we're gonna cover, starting with downloading your files from the classroom, just in case you haven't gone there to log in and you're trying to wonder, where do I get these from? We're just gonna review that briefly. And then once we get the file and we open it in PowerPoint, we're gonna cover the basics. So how do I add and edit and copy the text that's on there? There is basic text, placement text that you're going to want to change and add your own photos. We're going to cover that. And then in addition, if you had a logo or you wanted to add anything or delete slides or even duplicate slides, we're going to go through a couple of different examples. Some of the PowerPoint files that are in your classroom are only one slide. So some of these examples wouldn't apply. You would just make your change and then you would save it. And we're going to talk about the different types of saving you would do, because depending on where it's going, you might need to save it either as a PDF or as a graphic. And I'll go over why. What's the difference there? There's another example. What if you don't have PowerPoint? And just like Julie said earlier, we're going to just briefly talk about what does it mean to open it in something called Google Slides versus Keynote, which are two other programs that are out there. But first, let's just take a look very briefly. We have this video provided for us on how you would download it from your classroom. So let's take a look.
Hey Power Agents, this is Sarah. Today I am going to be taking you through logging in and downloading the neighborhood market report from your classroom. Okay, so first you're going to head to darrylspeaks.com and log into your Power Program portal. Click login. It's above here next to the search bar. Click that. Your username and password in. Then you're going to be taken to your dashboard. And from your dashboard, you can go straight to your classroom. It's this first one on the left. And then the neighborhood market report is in the prospecting tab. Let's go down there. It's the one with the red phone. And it's going to be under C for certificate. Certificate, neighborhood market report. And you're just going to click it and it'll download it for you. So it's going to be down here in your downloads bar. And you can just open it up. So it's a PowerPoint file. And we do that so it's easier to edit for you, to add your information to your name, company. You can just click in there. Computer's being a little slow, but you get the hint. All right, so that's it. If you have any questions, just reach out.
It's a solid thank you to Sarah for creating that. I know it's going to be a little bit difficult to hear on the webinar here with us, but we will have this available. Obviously, you can follow the bouncing ball and see what she's doing, but also we'll have it available in your dashboard. There's some tutorials and it'll be available in that tutorial as well.
Perfect. And as always with these videos, you can always watch and rewatch and then pause it to get the hint. What I did is I took a snapshot of that specific part where the certificate was downloaded. One of these concepts that's good to understand is when you go up to your classroom and you're online on a website and you're clicking one of those PowerPoint files, It is downloading. So it's coming from the internet, it's coming down to your local computer. As Sarah said, it's located, or it looks like it's showing in your downloads bar. That does vary by browser. And what I mean by browser is if you're in Chrome, some people use Chrome to look at the internet. It might be in the bottom left corner. Some people use Firefox. It might be in the upper right corner. So don't fret if it doesn't look like exactly like the video showed you. You can always find this in your downloads folder. And every computer has that downloads folder located either under File Explorer for Windows people or Finder. But you can see here where the yellow arrow is pointing, I've kind of blown it up to show you the neighborhood market certificate is a PowerPoint. It ends in PPTX. And then all you do is you just click there and it opens.
Perfect.
So this is an example of it open in PowerPoint. Let's just take a brief moment again just to look at the screen. The left sidebar, this is PowerPoint, everybody, and this is what we call normal view. This is it. When you open PowerPoint and you open a file, this is what you see. The left-hand side is going to show you the slides. In this case, it's a certificate, so there's only one slide. That's why you only see one box. You see a little red frame around it in my example here. And then on the right side, it's a duplicate, but it's bigger. And that's because the right side of the screen is where you do your editing. And you're going to see me do that. So stay tuned. The upper part, you can see this big ribbon bar. If any of you have used Word, it's very similar. If you haven't used Word, don't worry about it. This would be your first venture into a Microsoft product. And a ribbon bar is like a toolbar where it has all kinds of features and tools across the top. There are menu options, and you won't be using all of them here, but they're up there in case you need them. I'll point to some of them.
See, I wanted to take just a moment and explain why we use PowerPoint for so many of our tools,
Okay.
as opposed to Word. All of the letters are in Word, but anything that requires graphics, we usually do it in PowerPoint because it's so much easier and way less frustrating for the end user. So for the agent, it's going to be less frustrating to use PowerPoint than it is for Word, because Word has a tendency, graphics float, they move around, it's hard to anchor them. It takes a little bit more tech savvy to make things stay in place in Word. And that's why we do it in PowerPoint. So I thought that I'd just throw that in there.
Okay, good. Thank you. When you open up a PowerPoint and even in Word, so for those of you going through this for the first time, what you learn here is going to apply to some of the things you may do in Word in your future. So yay for us. Well, you can see where the yellow arrow is pointing here to the bottom left corner. I'm just going to go back one moment here. See the certificate? See that bottom left corner where it said your photo here? Well, just imagine that you go ahead and click there. That's what it's going to look like. And it brings up this frame with these little white squares in the corners. That's normal. Those are called handles. And you can see here, I've sort of broken it up for you because this is pretty important to understand. Once you learn this skill, you're going to take it forward with you all the time. This repeats over and over. Anytime you have to take one of these PowerPoint files and edit it for your needs, you can see the upper part on the right, it says sizing. So you're going to see me, I'm going to go in, I'm going to change my name, I'm going to put in my email address. And for those of us who have long names or long email addresses, it's not going to fit in this box. This box is provided for us and it's perfectly fine, but you're going to need to size it. And that's what these little white boxes are for. They're tiny, but they're called handles. I want you to think of it as you're going to put your mouse pointer on one of those little white boxes and then you're going to click and drag and you're going to grab it. That's what it's going to feel like. So I'm going to go through that in a little bit. The other part is moving it. So what if you had to make your box a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, and then you needed to move it just slightly even, you're going to be able to do that too. So that pointer is a multi-directional arrow. So you see the difference here? There's a double-headed arrow when you're resting on a little tiny square. And then there is a multi-directional arrow when you're resting inside the text box. So that's what we're going to practice later. The other little part that I've put in at the bottom here is deleting. If for some reason there is a portion of a slide that you don't need, you may want to delete it. Maybe you want to delete that sample placement text because it's getting in the way or your picture is not big enough or whatever. You're going to have lots of flexibility here. So to delete any pieces of this slide, you're going to single click it and then you're going to use the delete key on your keyboard. And that's good because it's universal whether you have Windows or you have a Mac. So this is what it's going to look like. I feel like this is a little bit of a cooking show, kind of like I went to the oven and I brought out the finished product, you know. So this is what it looks like when you go and you get your photo. You're going to put on your certificate. Now, just a little bit of a note here as you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get myself PowerPoint, or I have it already. I'm going to venture in and do this. What photo am I going to use? And you want to do a little bit of that thinking ahead of time and make sure you have the file and you know where it is, so that when you are in PowerPoint, it's going to navigate to the folder so you can get it. That really helps lower the frustration of people trying to put this together in quick time. And then you'll have this in multiple formats. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, and that's a pro tip there too, Betsy, that, you know, as a real estate professional, you should have a folder on your desktop readily available that has your professional headshot in it and your logo. And even if you're housing, that kind of thing, if you're trying to design anything on your own, you're going to want to have some of those elements in one spot, easy to find on your computer. The same is true of your Power Agent tools. We always recommend that agents create a folder on their desktop for all of these tools so that everything's in one place.
Great. Excellent. I love it. So that covers the photo. The other part of this is the contact information. And there it is, one of those text boxes. So you're just going to single click on it until you can click inside, kind of like what Sarah did in the, not kind of, but what Sarah did in the video. And you're going to get to that point where you're going to be able to remove this placement text and put in your own. And I am going to demonstrate that. So hold on, I'm just doing a little bit of an overview here so we can kind of see what the whole process is. So at this point, you've taken the sample neighborhood market certificate, and now you've edited it. So you want to save your changes. When you go to the file menu, and this is usually whatever program you're in, you go to File, Save As, and Save As brings up this box. Now I'm working on a Mac, and so Mac users, it looks like this. If you're on a Windows computer, it might look a little different, kind of like you got in somebody else's car and the buttons are in different spots.
Great analogy.
Yes, it feels exactly like that. And, you know, like I drive Julie's car, I'm like, wait a minute, my lights are in a different spot. On a Windows computer, it feels the same way, but you do have a left-hand side of this box, just like on a Windows computer. And then you see these three arrows. Okay, that's my thing. When you're saving a file, everybody needs to promise me that you're going to do these three things. You're going to know what you called it, you're going to know where you saved it, and then you're going to know what type you used. And that's what these three yellow arrows are, the 3 steps. As long as you confirm that you know what you chose, you'll be able to find it later. There won't be any of this, I know I saved it, but I don't know where it went. This is going to save you from that. So this first time around, I wanted to show you how you would save this as a PowerPoint. Save it as a PowerPoint so that you could print it out on your color printer and you would have it on a piece of paper to carry with you. The PowerPoint one is the one that you're going to be going back in and editing if ever you need to. And so maybe you're going to give it a new name. Maybe you're going to put your initials on the end of it. You're going to choose what folder. I have a PowerPoint 101 folder, so that's where this came from. And then you're going to click save. All right, so that first time around.
To name a folder something that you can easily remember. So you putting everything in the PowerPoint 101 makes sense, right? And that way, when you go back to remember, the same thing as, you know, putting everything in that folder for your Power Agent tools. So I would name it Power Agent Tools. Yes. And then you have everything in one place, so you don't get that frustration when I can't find something.
Yes. Definitely. It's all this planning up front will really help you along the way. It really does. And look,
help with the headaches later, right?
Okay, we don't want headaches. Look at this on the left-hand side where you see applications. That's a Mac thing, but look at desktop. That's what you were talking about. If everyone's told to put their tools in a folder on the desktop, well, that's how you go and you look in it and you see if it's there. So this whole left sidebar is good for navigating, and it's going to be there whether you're on a Windows or a Mac. Now, in this case, I just took a screenshot to show you what would it look like. See, I put my initials on the end. So this was just taking it, making a change, changing the name so that now I have my version in addition to the one that I could always download for my classroom, but this is my version. And that way I know that when I need to go find it later. But you see down here, file format, that's still the PowerPoint. PPTX means that's the one I can edit. As opposed to this, I know it looks very similar, but look at the title. This is where you would export as a PDF. So this is what comes up in PowerPoint. If you go to File and not Save As, but File Export, you can take the PowerPoint version and it makes a PDF. A PDF is that well-known document format that is universal all over the world, no matter what computer your client, your buyer, your colleague, your friend, your family member, whoever, you can send them a PDF and most likely they're going to be able to open it, view it, and print it. PDFs are not always for editing, which is actually good too, because you're going to be able to send this and be rest assured that not everybody edits PDFs. That's a more advanced feature.
Well, and you'll note that everything that's in your document stay as a PDF, it's going to stay the way it is. In other words, if you email a PowerPoint to a client, for example, then if they don't have the same fonts as you do in your computer, then things are going to look a little wonky. The nice thing about a PDF is it's a very crisp copy. It says everything exactly the way it is. Nothing's moving around on you. And it's not dependent on the other person having the same technology as you do. So that's what's nice about if you're sending a document. That's what's nice about a PDF. And PDFs are open with Adobe Reader, which almost every computer everywhere has. So, and even your tablets and your phones are able to look at the PDFs.
Yes, exactly. I have a friend who usually doesn't carry a laptop and she only carries a mobile device. She can read a PDF. Now, I'm not going to say that puts you all off the hook. You really do need to get yourself that laptop because look, she can't edit a PowerPoint on her mobile device. You know, there are apps for all this, but you really want to have that full-fledged computer so that you can do your work comfortably.
Well, and so you can do those presentations, those virtual presentations with sellers and virtual meetings with buyers.
Yeah, definitely. And the PDF, keep in mind, is the one that you're going to be printing and emailing. So printing, like you said, it's going to look exactly like it did on the screen. Emailing, they're going to see a version on their end, going to look exactly like it did on your screen. But this version is not for social media. So if you wanted to put this certificate up, and I don't think you would want to put this certificate, you know, this is the one that says, you know, hey, look what you're granted. You may want to use another version, which I'm going to do next, which is that free market comp. But any of these, if you want to put them on social media, you're going to need to save it as a graphic. And a graphic file is considered a JPEG. There's a lot of different ones, but we know JPEGs, JPEG, and you'll see that in the list down there. And all this is showing is that if you click in the file format box, you get a drop down of all the other choices. And look, you could make a video. I mean, there are lots of things you can do in here. There is another one a little further down called PNG. You may have heard of that. That's also a graphic type. And so is TIFF, but I'm going to have you go for JPEG, and that's going to be perfectly fine. You're going to be able to save those on your computer and then upload them is the term. That's how we send them from our local computer up to the internet to your social media platform.
And really the difference between the JPEG and the PNG is size, right? The PNG is a larger file. It's a higher resolution file. So it's going to be bigger. So sometimes uploading things that are big files are problematic. So JPEG is the perfect thing to choose.
It is. It is. There's another program out there called Canva, not to mix things up here, but it's a graphic program that you may have heard of. And I often do save them in PNG from there just because I want them in high quality. This is perfectly fine. You don't have to worry. You save it as a JPEG, it's going to be perfectly fine for social media. You have to remember that's why you're uploading something, because they're going to be seeing it on a screen and the resolution really doesn't have to be as great. If you're going to also follow up individually with somebody with that email, then you're going to want to send them the PDF. And this is just showing once you choose JPEG and underneath you can see those numbers. That's kind of what you're meaning, Julie, with the resolution. Resolution is the word we use to indicate what's the quality, how high quality or low quality is it. And these numbers indicate the area. So if you were to, think about a rectangle and it would have a width and a height, that's what these numbers are. And what does it really mean in the scheme of things? You can kind of think of your monitor as 800 wide by 600 height by 600 tall. So these numbers are perfectly fine because your certificate is never going to be the entire size of a monitor when it's on social media. It's going to be in that part, in that feed. So you're perfectly fine. So in the beginning, we were talking about what happens if you don't have PowerPoint. You download this neighborhood market certificate from your classroom. Now you have this PowerPoint file, but you don't have the PowerPoint program. You go about your days and you use something maybe called Google Slides. Maybe you have this, a Google account, a Gmail account. It comes with these features. So this is an example of how you would get your certificate to open in Slides. The first step is getting it into your drive because Google Slides is a program that is up on the internet. And this is an example of Drive. You would have to know how to go there, how to log into your Google account. And then on the left-hand side where this yellow arrow is pointing, there's an option called File Upload. When you do a file upload, now it's the other direction. It came down from your classroom onto your local computer. Now it's going up to your Google Drive.
To the cloud.
To the cloud. You got it. It's in the cloud. And once you get it up there, then what you're going to do is you're going to, from Slides, that's what this screen is. I'm in Google Slides. And on the left side, there's that file menu again. It's very popular. When you do File Open, you're going to be able to navigate like this because I uploaded it already. And there it is. My neighborhood market certificate is up in my drive. And when you click it and click open, you're going to see it in Slides. In another example, there's another program if you don't have PowerPoint, which is called Keynote. And Keynote is a version of PowerPoint which comes on a Mac. And if you're a Mac user and you have this program, the one tip I'm gonna tell you is I want you to open Keynote first. I want you to open the program first. A lot of people, what you tend to do is you go to where the files are, like we were saying, maybe you have a folder on your desktop and you go to where your files are and then you double click the file. Well, your computer doesn't always know what program you would like to open. And so this way you open the program first and then you use that very popular file open. Actually, what Keynote doesn't even let you ask. It asks you. The moment the program opens, this is what you see. It wants to know what file you're opening. And then you just navigate on that left-hand sidebar to what you want, and then it opens. So once you open the certificate, there it is again, and you just follow the same procedures. This isn't a Keynote recording right now, a Keynote video, so we won't go into all the steps, but they're very similar. But that's how you would open it.
And just to be clear, PowerPoint is used on PCs, so regular computers. Keynote is for Mac users. And Google Drive or Google Slides, anybody can use because it's internet-based.
That's right. And let me interject that PowerPoint can also be used on a Mac. So PowerPoint, and we'll see that when we go, we're going to show you the link on how you buy it. And it'll show you there on Microsoft's site. It'll say, you can buy this and you can load it on a Windows or a Mac. So, but Keynote, like you said, Julie, is proprietary to the Mac world. So let me take you now, we're going to go live to the
Please.
the PowerPoint, yeah, just so that we can see this in action. And so what I've got to do now, I'm gonna go back to my PowerPoint. I'm gonna close out this one, and I'm gonna bring you into my other one. And
Oh, sure you are, Betsy.
yeah, here we go, here we go, here we go. And just to show you, so here we are live in PowerPoint, and I'm going to go into, I can do open recent because I had it open recently. If you didn't have it open recently, you would just go to File Open, and that's where you're going to go look for that folder where it's saved to. Now, the very first time around, it's most likely in your downloads folder, but if you've saved it on that desktop in that folder, that's where you're going to go grab it. And here it is. So just to explain how to load your picture in, when you take it off the internet, it's going to have these placement text boxes. And when you click on them, those little tiny squares are in there. You can either leave that placeholder there as a sizer if you want to be able to see, how big your photo should be.
Betsy, I'm sorry, we're seeing the Let's Go Live to PowerPoint. We're not seeing the market report.
Okay, sorry.
I can see you moving, but we're not seeing the same thing.
Okay.
Ta-da!
How about that?
That's
That
better,
looks-
thank you.
All right. So that was from our Zoom video on how to share screens and how to have both PowerPoints open before you start your meeting. So when you open the certificate in PowerPoint and you click, just like I was showing in the overview, these boxes, they're placeholders that hold the text. They might have placement text. This little image here, you can delete or you can use for sizing. What you're going to do is you're going to insert your photo into the certificate and you're going to move it on top like this. You're going to go up to the insert menu and then you're going to use the option which is called picture and then from file. You remember that, insert picture from file. And that's what goes out to your local computer. And if you have that folder all ready for you, you can go ahead and click on your picture and click insert. And then your photo comes into the certificate in a certain size. And that's based on the quality of the photo. Now what I'm doing is I'm practicing that sizing that I mentioned in the overview. These little tiny white squares in the corners, you can see when I put my pointer on top, it changes to a double-headed arrow. You're going to want to be just a little bit patient here with your hand and move that mouse pointer. You can see if you're just a little bit off of it, you get a different pointer. You want to be right on that square so you get that double-headed arrow. And when you click and drag inward, the box, whether it's text or graphic, gets smaller. And if you click and drag outward, that box gets bigger. So I'm going to size it about to what I think it is, but it's in the wrong spot. So I'm going to put my pointer now inside the box, and you can see now I get that multi-directional arrow that I spoke of earlier. And if you click and drag with that pointer, you can bring it right into place. And once you get into place there, you can see now you might want it to be a little bit smaller. Can you notice that I'm going to the corners of this? I'm using the corners. I'm not using the squares in the side. And that's because if you size a graphic, you want it to be taller and narrower, or I should say shorter and narrower like that, or taller and wider so that it keeps its proportions. You don't want to look stretched or wide, or maybe you do. But
The ratio aspect.
yeah, the ratio, you want to keep it that way. So you can see, we peek behind, there it is. You could remove that, and the way you remove these placeholders is you single click them and you press the delete key on your keyboard. So if you wanted to, you could do that. It's a major ta-da. And then you can just move that into place. How nice.
Perfect.
The contact information, that's a text box, very similar. And when you click inside the text box, I'll just show that again. I'm going to click outside it, and then I'm going to click back inside it. And wherever I click, you can see that cursor is flashing. So if this were text that I wanted to change and you just start typing, it's very possible that the box may or may not fit. You may get in here and it looks like that, and you'll have to size it accordingly. So these little squares work the same way. You go to the little square. Now you can go to the square on the side. You actually want to. Because look, I don't have much room above. I don't really want to size this up and to the right. That's what the corners do. I just want to size it to the right. So I'm going to position my mouse pointer on that little white square, make sure I get a double-headed arrow, click and drag, and then I won't see it go into place until I release my finger on the mouse, that is. So I can see I haven't gone far enough. It's okay if I go over something in the background. When I release my finger, you can see because the box is clear, it's not filled in with any color, anything in the background does show through. But you can move this text box, like I said, find that multi-directional arrow pointer, and when you click and drag, you can move that contact information wherever you would like.
Betsy, we can also let everybody know that this is a completely editable document. So if you wanted your email in a different spot or whatever, you can totally do those things as well. Like you don't have to keep the line in the middle. You can put it on different lines. You can change the font size. You can go to the Power Agent and logo. You can move that if you want. All of these things are it's all completely editable. So if you wanted to move things around, that's perfectly okay.
Perfect point. And you can see I'm using all of the same skills that we've covered here. That's why I said earlier, once you get this skill down, and actually open this up after you watch this video so you can just practice it in here.
Follow along, exactly.
Right.
That whole paragraph ahead, you can move that paragraph up if you want, and
yeah,
then you've got a little bit more room. I mean, all of that is, you can change whatever you want in here.
That's a good point. Because look, what if you put your picture in and just the way your picture is, you need that paragraph to go up a little bit, fully flexible. Very good point.
Well, and to note, on this is pretty universal, but there are many of your PowerPoints that are in your classroom also talk about specific market conditions. So if that market condition is not what you're finding in your area, you can change that. Like all of this is changeable. So maybe you want to add something. Like here's something that I want to add that's personal to my business. You can totally, if you have a staging service or whatever, if you want to add bullets, take bullets out, all that is all completely up to you.
Yeah, really good point. And if you were to, if you wanted to move one of these to another line, like you were talking about, if you were to click inside one of these boxes, you have to think of your word processing skills here, because these little boxes are exactly that. They're just like little word processors. And if you press enter in there, or return on your keyboard, it puts in a new line and it just moves down what's in there. And look at these little boxes. You can size it. You can make that text box bigger if you needed to. Right now it's not growing because there isn't another line. You would have to put another line of text for it to grow. But you can backspace, you can do whatever you want. All right, so I'm going to bring that back up just for the sake of our example here. And then you can see what I did is if I want to see what it looks like and you don't want to have anything selected, you can click outside in this solid gray area. You can click out there and then nothing is selected. If you just want to take a peek at it to see what it would look like when it's done. Now we'll just review our saving. Go up to the File menu and you choose Save As. When you choose Save As, my 3 arrows are not here now, but those 3 yellow arrows, remember those? What are you calling it? Where is it going? And what's the type? As long as you can confirm that, you're going to be real happy in the long run and not frustrated. We don't want you frustrated. So you're going to see at the top there, you're going to be able to...
I'm not seeing that.
Oh, the Save As box. Okay, hold on. You see, these are all little Zoom tricks. Tricks of the trade. And what we should do as a little bonus is I'm going to stop the share again, just for the sake of this example. And what I'm going to do now is when you share a screen, you can share the actual desktop so that when I share PowerPoint now, you should be seeing the certificate again.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see now if when I do save as, Julie's going to tell me.
Yeah, now we see it.
Yeah, because this time when I shared screen, I picked my entire desktop. So you even see the bottom of my Mac now and all the programs that are there. So you see the entire desktop. Whereas before I was sharing just the PowerPoint file and it wasn't giving you the benefit of all these little pop-ups. So that's the difference there. Some people, when you're sharing in Zoom, you usually don't pick the desktop because you want just the PowerPoint. So in this
And
case,
that in our Zoom 101 course that's in your tech training and tools classroom.
yes, and we talked about sharing. We even did it in the souped up too. We were talking about sharing that visual listing conversation. And so here are the three boxes. So what are you going to call it? Now, I always tell people when the name like this is blue, it's all highlighted in blue. And if you click at the end there, you see the little cursor flashing in that box. Now you can just hit backspace. So you can keep a majority of that name without retyping it and then maybe just put on your initials or whatever you want. You can put there. I'm actually gonna put 3 because I think I have one in there with that name. And then here's the folder. If you're going for your desktop, you're going to pick that over here. Any of these folders that you have ready for you, you make sure it's showing in this box. And then the file format is what I said. If you leave it at PPTX, that's going to be saved as a PowerPoint presentation, and that's the one you edit. So that's the one you do want to have all the time that you can open and make changes to and then print again and save. That's your master. So you do want to save your changes as a PowerPoint. When you click save, looks like nothing happens, but at the top of your screen, you do see the name you gave it. That's always up there. Even when you're in Word, it tells you up at the top what the name is of the saved file. So you can see the name did take there.
While we're at that, save often. Don't wait until you finish a document
Yes.
to save it, because if the power goes out or you get a glitch or you do what I do, and sometimes I get, great, I've got too many things open and I close it by mistake and then it doesn't save. Now, Microsoft does a good job of auto saving things, but I always tell people, save often.
Oh, yes. Never rely on autosave, actually.
Yes.
If you were with me and I was teaching you all the time, I would tell you never rely on autosave
No.
because that's not the version of the file you want anyway. You want the one that you know, those 3 arrows, you know what you called it, where you put it, and what type it was. If,
And just a quick note, we saw PPTX, which is the latest version of PowerPoint.
yes,
Some agents might see a file, open a file, in the future that might say PPT, right? That's still a PowerPoint file, but it's an older version. So I just wanted, just in case somebody comes across something that's a PPT file, that's PowerPoint as well. It's just an older version.
that's right. That's right. And if you're using an older version of PowerPoint, you'll be able to work and edit. You just might need to talk to somebody about how to open those PPTXs. There's still a way. It's just indicating what version you have. So you do want to, if you have the newer version of PowerPoint, you have no issues. You can open any of those, whether it's PPT.
I like how your photo and your jacket go nicely with the neighborhood market report theme.
Matches there. Yeah, I picked that on purpose. Now, if you want to now take this certificate and email it to someone, then you want to have a version for yourself in that folder, let's say, that is a PDF. And on that file menu, when you choose export, that box that I went through in the overview, here it is. So once again, you get to decide what you want to call it, where you want to put it, and then there's that PDF. And I'll just show you live now. You get to pick that JPEG too. So if you weren't emailing it at this time and you just wanted to make it a JPEG and make sure that you could upload it to social media later, that's how you do it. And when you click export,
While you're on that, though, that is interesting for those of you. There are tools in your classroom that have many pages. So on this, there's only one page, right? So you're saving this current slide. But if you were to save if you had a multi-page thing and you were saving all the pages, and you said save every slide, it would actually convert them. And then in your folder, you would have multiple files. So you would have neighborhood market report, BSC, and then it would say one, and it would say two. It would say it actually will make pictures out of every slide that's in your which is kind of neat in sometimes because you can pick and choose.
Very neat. I mean, really, the fact that you have all this at your fingertips, that you can take this, just put in your photo and your contact information, and you end up with a graphic, that's nice. And then you can take your graphic and upload it so that everybody can see it. And especially like you said, if it's multiple pages, very, very helpful. And actually, what we're going to do is, let me export this one into that folder. I'm going to open up the PowerPoint that we looked at in the souped up Zoom recording. And now based on our Zoom sharing screen again, Julie, if you would just tell me if you see the PowerPoint I just opened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. With the tips slide on the front?
Yes.
Okay, good. And so this is the first time really today, since we've been talking about PowerPoint, that we're looking at a PowerPoint file that has multiple slides. And that PowerPoint presentation starts with this slide. And you can see, look at the third bullet. To customize, you may need to delete slides or add slides just to get it tailored to
example, the tips one you wouldn't have in a presentation
You
that you would
wouldn't.
share with a homeowner, right?
Exactly.
So you'll
wouldn't
take all the
start-
tip slides out.
That's right. You wouldn't start with this one. So I wanted to cover how easy it is to delete slides from PowerPoint. All you have to remember is to right click. Right clicking with your mouse. I should say if you're on a laptop, sometimes that is a two-finger press if you're pushing on a trackpad on a laptop, or it's using the control key and a click, or the command key on a Mac and a click. So any of those combinations lets you see this pop-up menu. You can see on the left side. I hope it's coming up in the Zoom.
It is. It absolutely is.
Share. Excellent. So when I right click, now notice I did not right click on the big part here. That's different. That's choosing parts of a slide. If I wanted to delete the entire slide, I have to use that left-hand sidebar. That's where slides in their entirety are manipulated. And sure enough, there it is, delete slide. And don't fret, you can actually take this version with the fewer slides and do what you just learned, which is File, Save As. So if you do a Save As now you're going to have your version, and then you're going to have the original version that you can always open up again in your folders. So maybe you're going to, change the name and put the, I don't know, the actual potential
Seller's name.
buyers.
That's what I would do. I would put listing conversation for Mrs. Smith, or
Exactly.
for Smith,
Smith,
family,
Smith
listing
family.
presentation for,
Love it.
Jones family, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So you would customize that. That way you're going to see that file in the folder. And you're going to know exactly that's the one you need for that meeting that you're going to hold. And when you click save, there it is again. The three things, they are always there. What you're going to call it, where you're going to put it, and what's the file format. And we're not going PDF here. We need the PowerPoint so we can keep making edits to it.
Unless you were going to email that to them. If you were going to email this, which we don't recommend you email the listing presentation to the family, because you're going to present that live using something like Zoom or GoToMeeting.
Yeah.
But if you were to want to email, just as we talked about earlier, even something that's multiple pages, you're going to want to save that as a PDF. But right now, we're just talking about saving a PowerPoint.
Yeah. This one, I'm going to go ahead and save it as a PowerPoint. I mean, look here, follow your eyes down that left-hand side, all the way down in the gray bar at the bottom of this screen. Look, it says I'm on slide 1 of 103. So you're not going to want to email all 103.
That's a big file.
Big file. You're not going to want to do the save as a graphic and have 103 graphics in your folder. You're not. You're going to use this in its entirety so that you can show it on a screen. It's really nice, very pleasing to the eye too. But look at this slide. We can just do a little practice here. So prepared for, you wouldn't have any family. Well, look at that. When you click there, there's our text box again. So if you wanted to say, whatever you wanted to say, you could type in here. And the font and the size of the characters are all set for you. So all you have to do is just click in here and change the information. And now that's a little trick that I do. I just realized that's my tip of the day. You ready? So instead of clicking at the end, here's my cursor, and deleting, if I know I want to change this from Main Street to Prospect Street, let's say, I can just double click on the word that I want to replace. You ready?
Yay.
And I just type and it replaces it. Much cleaner. I don't, if I want to keep some of this here, it saves me time. I don't have to, type it back in and have it change the way it was in the beginning. And same thing, any town that would change to, whatever city you're in, and, you would type as needed. So you can also double click on any of these. Instead of replacing it, you can just backspace, and then it just deletes that one word. There's little tips that I like, And then here you go. If that happened to you and the zip code went down to the next line, you've got these little squares, those handles.
Handles.
On the right side, there's that handle, and it's a handle. It's like you're pulling that right side. So you've got to have the right pointer though. That's that double-headed arrow. When you click and hold and you drag, there it goes. And the other thing I wanted to show in this one, which was a good example, we go down a little bit. So slide 6 is the about me. And so here's another example where you're going to bring in that photo of yourself. It's a slightly different shape, but this is a placeholder. So you can remove that as needed using the delete key on your keyboard. And then you're going to bring in, remember the 3 steps, insert picture from file. And that's going to let you pull up that photo again so that you can add it to your slide. We're in a different presentation now. So what I wanted to show here was, once again, if you wanted to delete this placeholder, you could right click it if you like to remember that and just cut it. But I always like to just tell people, single click it, press the delete key on your keyboard, and then it removes it. Now PowerPoint does have these little placeholders that you will see on slides, and they can be deleted too. You can just click on its border. There it is, there's the frame, and you press the delete key on your keyboard. So nothing gets ruined here, or it's fully flexible. You're just going to practice these steps of sizing, moving, and deleting the placeholders that you don't need. I would do that over and over until you feel really comfortable. And if you wanted to size that down, you could. Now, here's what I wanted to indicate. What if you get to this one, my recent sales, and maybe you've got more than these 3? Who knows? I'm kind of going out on a limb here just to show an example. What if
You're crushing it and you've got 6
right?
listings.
Right? What if you did and you wanted to add a slide? Now, I'm all for adding more slides, getting more content in there, but I want to do it in the least amount of time needed. And PowerPoint has something called duplicating. So you can duplicate this slide, yay, and then just change the text that you need on the new one, great. And so you can right click, I'm doing that on the left sidebar, and there it is, duplicate. And when you do duplicate, look what happens. In that left sidebar, there it is, now you've got 2 of them.
Perfect.
If you had a lot to say about yourself, you could do that to your bio. You can do this to testimonials. You can do this to any one of them. You can duplicate a slide. And then all you're going to do, I would recommend that you notice what slide you're on. Because when you duplicate, now you've got 2 of them. So you'll notice that there's this thin red frame on the left-hand side. That tells you what slide you're on, because now they look exactly the same. So it's like, ooh, which one am I on? Am I on the first one or the second one? You can also see you're on slide 8 in that bottom left corner. That tells you that. Just to double check to make sure when you're doing your edit that you're on the correct slide that you want to edit.
Good tip.
Yeah, so that shows you how to add slides and delete slides. And as you go through here, you'll just do this. You'll do this over and over. It repeats where you can remove parts of a slide. That's done on the right-hand side of the screen. If you want to remove an entire slide, that's done on the left-hand side of the screen. And as you scroll down, any of those tips slides are going to be removed because you don't want those to come up when you're actually given the presentation. And then frequently, you're going to come up here, you're going to choose File, and you're going to choose Save. Now, earlier I said Save As. That's for that very first time around where you want to change the name, you want to get it in that folder with all of your stuff for that listing, and then make sure it's a PowerPoint, and you're going to save. That's going to save the changes. When you do it this way with Save As, it prompts you. It says, wait a minute, there is one in that folder with the same
Are you
name.
sure?
Are you sure? And you have to say replace because yes, the one that was in there was the one I showed you before I duplicated the slides and before I put, my bio and all of that. So you do have to replace it.
Which is a good reason to save it as a different file name. So you always have the original that you can go in and you can manipulate, you can play with. If you know, I deleted something, and so you've always got that option if you save the original and then save other versions with your initials or for the Smith family. Betsy, can you do me a favor and go up to your slide with your picture in it? Sure. I just wanted you to showcase. Sometimes the ratio might feel off, like a longer picture might not seem like it fits because a lot of these pictures in here are square. Can you just show them how you would double click and crop a photo?
Sure. So with it selected, you can go up here to the picture format ribbon. Now, Julie said it, she said double click. When you double click, that tells PowerPoint that you want to work on it in a little more detail. And the features come up here. And one of them on the right, it says crop. Now, cropping is the feeling that you're going to take away a part of the background that you can do without. And in this one, I got a little bit of space above my head, and I have some space in my torso area that I could maybe crop up without making it look too short. So if you needed to, and the photo allots, then what you're going to do, notice when I hit crop, now those little white squares have these black lines on them, and the black lines are the crop handles. So you're going to put your pointer right on top. Notice that we have another pointer now, and it's all about the pointer. Those double-headed arrows, that was for sizing. The multi-directional, that was for moving. And now the crop handle, look at that, just a smidgen. And if I'm on it, I have this like little upside down T. And when I click and hold and drag, I know it changes to a cross. Wherever I leave that line, that area in there is going to be cropped out. Now, before I'm done, I can do the bottom part that I want. Maybe I'll go up that far. I'm not going to make it a little narrow. I think you were probably aiming to go a little more square. So that's kind of the ratio that you're looking for, but you could certainly crop something, remove that background if you wanted to. You could do that. And when you're done, you're going to click the crop button again to tell it you're done. You can see it goes back to those squares.
It's like magic.
It is, isn't it? And then now that can be moved where you want.
They're going to think they are graphic designers when we're done with them.
Right. And then what do we do right away? We save changes. So if you go up to File, this is what I wanted to say before, you can just do Save, File, Save, File, Save. I am coming to you right now from northern New Jersey today, and there is a big rainstorm going on. I was on with someone in the Delaware area today, and the rain was there. So I don't know if it was with you earlier, Julie, but it's moving its way up the East Coast. And when it's storming outside, you want to make sure that you are saving. If it's a hot summer night and there are some brownouts, you want to make sure you are saving frequently, because
there's nothing more frustrating than having spent an hour on a project and then having not saved it and losing it and starting over. Nobody wants to do work twice. So
definitely. And if you just do File, Save, what that does is it takes that name, the one that I said Smith family on the end, in the folder where I put it, and it just makes the changes and it updates it. So it doesn't ask me that replace question. You even have a little toolbar button, which I always find is funny because I've been in technology now for about over 30 years. And we used to have these little floppy disks for those of you out there who may have seen one or used one.
Been there. And the big ones, remember that there were big ones too.
Yes, they were actually floppy. So I kind of get a chuckle. I never want them to remove this button. It's up in the upper left corner because that means save.
Near and dear to our hearts.
Yes, exactly. So that would show you just repeat this process for adding slides, deleting slides, and changing content on a slide to wherever you need it to throughout here. And when you're done, you're going to have the one that you need. You're going to see as you go through here, there's going to be slides that are for those tips. You're going to want to go through and notice those first and notice what it's indicating that you should do. And then when you're done taking that tip, you want to remove that slide by right-clicking it on the left side of the screen and deleting it. Now, yeah.
For those of you who, since we're sharing the listing conversation, you're going to see a lot of things in here, like the pictures of the fashion show and that kind of thing. Darryl actually does the entire listing presentation in a webinar format or a recorded format, so that he shares what those mean, and he shares analogies for each one. So he teaches you how to present them as well. But if all those tools aren't for you, there's a reason it's 104 pages, right? You can certainly take out what doesn't work for you. You can add other things if you've got other tools that you want to use. All of that is available to you.
That's great. I think the other thing we wanted to talk about was, with all of this great stuff available to you, you may want to make sure that you have PowerPoint. And if you you should be seeing my internet now.
We do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. You want to go to the Microsoft site. You can see at the top here, it's a rather long link, but if you could just Google how to purchase Microsoft 365, and you'll be navigated to the Microsoft.com. You do want to make sure it comes from there. I don't want you purchasing Microsoft Office from a third party. You definitely want to.
I was just going to say that if you didn't.
Yeah, you
be careful where you are downloading things.
Yeah, you definitely want to purchase it from Microsoft. And that you can see up here, this is what we call in the upper left corner where I'm clicking. It's all blue now. That's what we call the URL bar when you're on the internet. That URL is the technical term for the www.com name.
The address.
And the reason that's so long is because on their site, you can see it's the US version, and then they have a Microsoft 365 area and for you to buy it. And that's why it's so long with slashes. But when you get here, they have these 3 columns. That's what I wanted you to make sure you noticed, in that you can purchase Word and Excel and PowerPoint. If you get one of these packages, it may come with Outlook as well and Publisher. That's what these first 2 columns are, and that's because you're paying monthly. So this is what they call Microsoft 365. When you purchase 365, you're getting the Microsoft Office Suite 365 days of the year, every year. So
and whenever it updates it prompts you to update your computer. So you'll always have something fresh. And I'm so glad that you brought this page up and the ability to purchase this product, because it is an investment in your business, and the need to do things virtually and present things and create is higher than it's ever been. And I know that's out of a lot of comfort zones for agents, right? So which is why we're doing this, right? It's why you and I are together today, to share some of these tools. But $100 investment in your real estate business is not a lot. And you may not use all of those tools, right? But you may want the option to. Mm-hmm. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a solid investment. As we said earlier on, there is a Google version of all of these. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a Gmail account and you want to just use the Google version of that, mm-hmm. you certainly can. It just doesn't have quite all the bells and whistles that the Microsoft product does. Mm-hmm. But you certainly can. And to get to your Drive, if you go to your Gmail, mm-hmm. I think some people are actually go through Outlook. Well, I guess they'd have to have Microsoft to do that, though, right? So if they're just going to gmail.com, right, mm-hmm. then you'll see where she just pointed, where there's the little 6 boxes up there on the right-hand side.
Exactly. Like here's a Google screen. I'm just trying to do it as you're talking. And in the upper right corner,
I'm gonna loop at you.
I know that those 9 little squares, or they look like dots now. When you click there, that's the Google menu of all of the apps that come with Google. There's lots of them, productivity apps. And there's your Gmail if you had it, but you can go right to Drive. If you scrolled all the way down, there it is. There's Slides. So you could go directly there if you wanted to. What I indicated in the video earlier is that you would need to, you can see here, it's like welcoming us for the first time, and we don't need to take a tour, because we got me. But if you needed to get that certificate up into your drive, then you would want to pick the drive first. The drive is your big file cabinet up in the cloud.
Like
That's
your
where,
desktop, right?
yeah, like your desk, like the hard. It's really like the inside of your computer is a hard drive. That's where everything is stored. I mean, your desktop on a computer, I know you can see it, but there's lots of other folders on your computer, like the documents folder and the downloads folder, where things can be stored. But they're stored on your local computer in your home, right in front of you, or in your office. The drive is in the cloud. So that's on a computer somewhere in the world. It's protected by your secure login and password to your Google account. And when you go to the drive, that's what you see here. And on the left-hand side, it always is that case, right? The left-hand side is usually where we see the buttons that we can either navigate to or choose. There is a new button, and then you can go to file upload. That's what I showed earlier. Why? Because we need to get that neighborhood market report uploaded into our drive. And when you click file upload, it's going to open up your local computer so that you can navigate to that folder where it is. Now, it may not be on your desktop. If you remember in Sarah's video at the very, very beginning, she said, look down there in your browser, it's in the bottom left corner. It's going to be in your downloads is what she said. And downloads are shown on the left-hand side of your screen here. So when you click on that left side and you go to your downloads, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see all the things that are downloaded to your computer. And then you're going to pick that neighborhood market report. And you see in the bottom right corner, it tells you that upload, that takes it from your current, your local computer, and it uploads it to the cloud, to Google's computer. And it's in your account now, and it's protected.
Yay.
So you'll see it there. See, everything has its own icon too, all different colors. Some are gray. Those are different folders, different containers. This is just a fun thing to learn too. So maybe in the future, we'll do one of these. But you can see here that once it's in there, then you're going to go to your Google Slides and you can open it. Let me show you what that looks like. And then, so you double click it. Now here it is. It doesn't quite look open yet though. It's like Google is kind of stopping us saying, well, now what do you want to do?
Now
Here
what?
it is. I mean, you could print it if you wanted to. That's all in the upper right corner. But how do we edit it? Well, we have to open it in Google Slides, and that's at the very top in the center. And you click there, and now we need a ta-da. So that's where now we're in Google Slides with the neighborhood market report, and it has opened. And there it is. See, we're not even in PowerPoint, and we still have those very similar text boxes with the handles, and then you can take out your placement text and delete what you needed, and off you go. And that's how you would do it up here without having PowerPoint. But like you said earlier, Julie, I'm going to agree with you. This is not the full-fledged version with all of the features. You're really going to be better off with PowerPoint in terms of working with and being really flexible with moving things around and changing them. So PowerPoint's really
$10 a month. So $10 a month,
Yeah.
you're definitely worth, your business is worth an investment of $10.
We'll go back to that. And then if, we do have to show that third column. Some people do just want a one-time purchase. Microsoft still honors that. You can purchase the software once. I always say, spread it out over the months, and then you do get updates all the time. When
Right. The one-time purchase does not include updates.
No, it doesn't. So, over here, the first two columns, well, the first column, that would be just for you. And you're going to be able to get updates whenever they come out. So it really is a good deal. If you look at the small print, that little paragraph underneath, it also comes with extra cloud space, not your Google Cloud space. I always tell people that cloud is run by different companies, and Microsoft has their cloud space, and Google has their cloud space, and Apple has their cloud space. And in Microsoft world, it's called OneDrive, and they give you cloud space. They actually give you lots of cloud space. So that's just a nice little perk on the side, that if you wanted to put your files and have them in a safe spot so that as you're going from place to place, when that happens again, that you can retrieve your files. And even if you're not moving from place to place, I want to make sure that your files are safe and secure in case
And
something
you've got a
happens.
backup of them. So if
Yeah,
something happens to your local computer, there's a backup.
that's right. So the cloud is gonna protect you from that and give you that backup that you need.
I love it.
So yeah. So are there any other questions?
I don't think so. Let's go back to the PowerPoint itself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking those extra steps. I think they're important.
Yes, you're welcome. And we go back to the one we were on. And at this point, if we had any questions that I think we've covered everything.
We covered them today. If you want to go back up to the title slide, in case anybody is looking for extra coaching, we'd love to share your information. You're a doll. We love having you with us.
Thank you so much. You can see I really love PowerPoint. I love teaching the Microsoft Office products. It just takes one step at a time. You start here and practice, and you'll be able to get this. It's really something that you have to look at every day, though, to make it become familiar. I always say to people, you got to train your eyes. Once you train your eyes to all these new skills, you'll get it. It really is easy.
Well, and I'd like to reiterate what Darryl says a lot on our coaching calls and on our webinars, especially our tech webinars, is that you got to be patient with yourself, right? I mean, you're just learning, just like a child learns to walk, you're learning. And there's a steep learning curve right now for so much technology and for how we do business. But you have to be patient with yourself. You have to give yourself permission to fail first while you're learning. I think that's a really important mindset differentiator to talk about. You know, it's going to take, like anything, it takes practice. You don't become a concert pianist, you know, by the first time you try and play Heart and Soul. The first time you touch a key, you're not going to be an expert. You're not going to be an expert in any technology the first time you look at the technology. So it's important to practice. I will say it is also important to spell check. That is one thing I wanted to share. It just came to my head. Can you show them how we would do that? We would use review.
Yeah.
And whether you are in Office, I mean, whether you're in Word, whether you are on Google products or Microsoft products, make sure that you check your spelling.
Yes, a Word and PowerPoint is located on the Tools menu. It always has been, actually. If you even have the older version, it's still on the Tools menu. Luckily, they didn't move it. You can see how it says spelling, Tools, and then spelling. And just as an example here, what it's done is it stopped at my email address. Look in the bottom left corner, you can see that my email address and my website address are underlined in that red squiggly line. And that's indicating that it can't find it in the dictionary. So something that is a common name or something like this is not in the dictionary. So over here on the right-hand side, you would just power through this and say, well, you can ignore that. I look at my email, it's spelled correctly, so I can just say ignore, and it moves on to the next one. Same thing, I look at that. Now, any place my website was listed, I could just say ignore all, and then it won't pick it up again as misspelled. So that's another.
Or you can add it. You can add it to your dictionary. If you're using, which you probably are, you're going to use your contact information in multiple slides, multiple places, and you can always just hit add.
Okay, so now, see, now you got me. So now I got to show you. See, now this is where we, I told you. I say you get.
I didn't mean to throw you for a loop, but it just came to me to remind
you
people
get me started.
to spell check.
So see this little red squiggly line. This is what I love to show people is that if it's happening while you're typing, then you can. I changed the word download, and I just spelled it wrong. And I mean, this obviously may have been a typo, but even the case, if you right click on the red squiggly line. So now we are right clicking in between the letters of the word that's underlined in red. And then in the pop-up, PowerPoint tries to determine how we wanted to spell it. And so you can see here, that's the correct one, and you click there and it replaces it. And that's going to happen no matter what. So you can, anytime you have a red squiggly line, you can do it right at that point. If you didn't know how to spell something, you could right click it. Now, it may not be in that pop-up, but that's a real nice little feature to use as you're going.
I'm glad we covered it.
And then, yeah, so because then you just take care of it right then. But it's a good thing to do a sweep before you were to send this out. Of course, you don't want to have any typos, and you do want to proofread your work too, because sometimes something's not picked up by spelling, and it's not proper grammar, and you want to maybe give it to another set of eyes to look at as well, something, or take a rest and then look at it later. All of those are really good tips because you want to catch it before somebody else does.
Another editing tip is to read backwards. If you read from the bottom up as opposed to the top down, your
Hmm.
eye will catch misspellings and that kind of. And if it's not misspelled, if it's just the wrong word, it won't show up with that squiggly line, right? So if you read things from the bottom up, then your eye tends to catch problems faster
Love that.
than it would if you're reading, because your mind does tricks, right? Your eyes automatically fill. You ever see those things online where if you can read this, you're a genius, but and some of the letters are gone out of a sentence because your mind automatically just puts those letters in, right? So the same thing happens when you're editing. So that's just a little. We're just doing a little extra editing tips here as well as PowerPoint. So
I love it. It's all really important though.
it
When
is.
you're trying to, you want to do something, you want to look professional. This is all part of it. So it's important that you. I'm going to do that now. Read from the bottom up. Make sure that it's all correct.
And since she's still in the spelling mode, you can either just X out of that, or you would hit resume, and that would take you to the next problem in the.
Right.
And
Correct.
there's a lot of slides in here, so there could be more. But you could just X out of that if you're done that. And then what do we do after that? We hit save.
Save. So I'm going to do my favorite little button here at the top,
That's
or
right.
for those of you who want to see it fully, you do file save. And that way it makes the changes and it saves all those spelling corrections, and then you are finished.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Betsy. This has been an incredible training experience. We are so grateful to have you as our tech tool trainer and expert. As always, very thorough, very patient. I think Power Agents will love what they get out of this. So thank you so much for your time, and we love having you. So Power Agents, you will find this in the Tech Tools and Training section of the classroom. And if you need us, holler. So thank you so much, Betsy.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.